My name is Pastor Matt. I am the youth pastor here at Harvest Ridge, and I get the honor of talking about something that's real important to us, and that is Harvest Palooza, all right? So, yeah, we love Harvest Palooza, and I like to call this Palooza Day, all right? Palooza Day. Now, we will, over the next few weeks, we will continuously be doing different things for Palooza, but I wanted to make sure that we started off on a note of knowing what Palooza is and what Palooza isn't. So if you notice, there's a whole bunch of us with our green shirts on, right? These are, a representation of what a whole bunch of people, over 400 volunteers, will be wearing on the day of Harvest Palooza, right? And so here's the thing. I'll say it this way. Why do you do what you do? Right? There's a lot of do's in that. It's like that one passage from Paul, but, I do not do what I want to do, but what I do, All right, anyway, so why do you do what you do? Now, that could be your, why do you drive in the left-hand lane when there's 15 cars piled behind you, right? Why do you refuse to turn right on red? I guess I have traffic on my mind. But why do you eat your food one item at a time? Why do you do it this way? Why do you do it this way? Does this make sense, everybody? Now, in each one of our heads, we have some form of logic or reason, right? Now, that logic or reason may be flawed, but we have some sort of logic or reason. We may have facts of why we base our opinions on something. Is everybody with me? So you may have these facts. Now, those facts may be incorrect, but you still have facts and reason for why you do what you do. Most actions that we take in life, we have some sort of reasoning or logic behind them. So why do we do what we do? Because we don't know any better, because it's what we have processed to do. I remember a few years ago, when Pastor Carl was still our kids pastor. Do you guys remember Pastor Carl? Anybody? Okay, so there's a few people. Yeah, love him, old baldy. Sorry, our she-bear is going to come out and attack me? No. All right, that was a Bible joke. Sorry, I apologize. Anyways, so he was a brand new kids pastor, and I was in like fourth grade. I was in like third or fourth grade at the time. And so he had just stepped in as our kids pastor. This is the pastor who was before Pastor Caleb. And we were doing communion one day, and I remember very specifically taking communion, and the girl next to me, after we've partaken, she raises her hand and she goes, "Pastor Carl, can I please get some more grape juice? I'm really thirsty." And Pastor Carl was like, "No, you can't have more grape juice." And she's like, "But I'm really thirsty. Actually, can I get some more bread? I'm really hungry too," right? And basically she was just talking about this. And Pastor Carl had to re-describe the purpose of communion. He had to re-describe that the body represents, Christ's body, that the bread represents Christ's body, and the juice is not just deliciousness, right? It is actually a representation. We do it in honor of God. So he had to re-go through, because here's the thing, she was doing something and she did not know the reason why she was supposed to be doing it. Right? So she was doing it probably because everybody else around her was doing it. That was her logic. Everybody else around me is doing it. And also, I'm really hungry and I'm really thirsty. That is the incorrect logic and why we would take communion. So someone had to explain to her why we take communion and why we do what we do. Is this making sense, everybody? So what I'm going to tell you guys today is I'm going to explain to you why we do Harvest Palooza. Why do we do Harvest Palooza? Why do we ask for volunteers? Why do we ask for, why do we give thousands of dollars to throw a city, or to throw a party for our city and the local communities? Why do we do this? If you don't know why you do something, you're not going to understand the culture. And it's going to be a lot harder to understand the vision. And honestly, if you don't understand the culture of something, it will never extend past the original visionaries. Right? So, for example, this church will never grow past Pastor Kevin if other people don't catch the vision that he has for this church. Does that make sense? Right? So, if we want other people to engage in Harvest Palooza, we need to understand the vision and the reasons behind it. Otherwise, it's just going to die when the visionary dies. Does this make sense? So, why do we do what we do? And here's the thing. If you've never heard why we do Harvest Palooza, or maybe you don't even know, I'm going to go into that a little bit. But if you haven't heard, that's okay. It happens. Maybe it's your first time. Maybe you're been coming for a few months and you've never been able to experience it. That's perfectly okay. I'm going to explain why. But if at the end of this, you cannot understand the reasoning why we do Harvest Palooza, it's not my fault anymore. It's y'all's. All right? I'm kidding, but kind of not really. Because here's the thing. I want you guys to know that way you can take accountability and that way you can take charge of something and own it as your own, right? Did anyone have to buy their first car? Anyone have to buy, wait, hold on. I need to see some hands. Let's get some participation. Did anyone have to buy their first car or buy part of it or do something like that, right? Okay. I'm not giving any flack to anyone who had their first car bought for them. If you had someone who could bless you like that, that's absolutely amazing. I will tell you that my parents did not buy me my first car. They helped me, but part of their reasoning was if we buy it for you, then you're not going to treat it as if you invested into it. That was their reasoning behind it, right? And they wanted me to take ownership and put investment into something. That way I actually cared for it, right? There's a big difference between renting an apartment and owning a house. Would everybody agree to that, right? When I'm renting the apartment, a little ding in the wall, it's not too big of a deal. Oh, I'm not going to check this or whatever, right? When I own the house, I'm going to check those dryer vents, right? I'm going to make sure that I'm treating my walls appropriately when I'm moving the couch or whatever. Why? Because I'm the one who has to pay for the damage that's being done. Is everybody with me? So let's catch the vision of why we do what we do. And by the way, this isn't just applicable to Harvest Palooza. This is applicable to everything in your life. Why do you do the things that you do? And I want you to take ownership and take accountability for the things that you have in your life, as well as Harvest Palooza. So if you walk away from the sermon and don't understand why, once again, I say, that's on y'all, because I think I'm going to explain this pretty dang clearly, all right? So let's go ahead and we're going to get into this. Why do we have Harvest Palooza? I'm going to give you 3 reasons why, and then also I'm going to have some verses attached to every single one of them. So normally, I like to work out of a central sermon, like a central passage. We are bouncing around a little bit today, but it's a little bit different of a sermon. So with that being said, our first reason for why we have Harvest Palooza is to give Jesus a good name in our community. To give Jesus a good name in our community, all right? So here's the thing. We are a reflection of Jesus as the bride of Jesus, right? We are the church of Jesus. We are Christians who show that we have a belief system and a guy that maybe people in this world will never be able to encounter unless it's through us, okay? And so we are a direct reflection of Jesus. Everything that we do and say, and even the things that we do not say and we do not do, are a direct reflection of Jesus. That means the things at work, the things at school, the things in your household, the things you post and repost on social media, all those are a reflection of Jesus. And what I want you guys to understand is that when we represent Jesus, we can give people, in all honesty, it puts an image in someone's head of what the reflector is. I'll just explain it like this. All right, so I was actually talking to some of our students. They went to Hocking Hills, and it reminded me of a story. So my wife and I, we went to Hocking Hills a few months ago. Actually, it was like a month ago for my wife's birthday, right? And she loves horses, so she wanted to go horseback riding. And so we went on this 2-hour-long horseback ride. And so it was myself, my wife, and one other couple and our trail guide. So there were 5 of us. And I was all the way in the back, and I had a 22-year-old horse named Maverick, all right? And so me and Maverick, we were buddies, and he was in no rush to get anywhere, right? He was in no rush to go anywhere. And I was just chilling. I was having fun. I had no issues. He would listen when I steered him and all that kind of stuff, which is always nice to have out of a horse. And anyways, all that to say, I first get on this horse, and my first thought is, should have been a cowboy. Should have learned to rope and ride. You know what I mean? And those are the only song lyrics that were coming to my head, just so you guys are aware. But for the rest of the 2 hours, guess what was stuck in my head? should have been a cowboy, right? And when it would come into my head, I would just sing it sometimes. And once again, Maverick was in no rush to go anywhere. So I, at times, was like 50 feet behind the trail. And I would just be talking to him, and I'd be singing and all that kind of stuff, right? And I think that I'm being pretty quiet. And then all of a sudden, so my wife was the horse in front, and then the other girl from the couple was in front of her. And at one point, we get to a close area where they kind of stop. And then all of a sudden, I just hear the girl go, should have been a cowboy. And then Sam looks at her and goes, I am so sorry. And she's like, it's all right. It's funny. He's cracking me up. But what I realized in that moment is that the things that I was doing both purposefully and I wasn't meaning for her to get that song stuck in her head. It was stuck in my head. But when I'm singing it, I'm representing the thing. Does that make sense? Right? So when I'm acting out on something, I'm actually placing something in her brain that whether she wants to or not, it's going to be something that she's going to take away, right? So maybe every single time she thinks about that ride, she's thinking I should have been a cowboy, right? Anyways, so it was a really fun time, but I had that realization that the things that I do and the things that I say and the actions that I take, they matter when I'm reflecting Jesus, right? And so Luke 10, 30 through 37 gives us a great example, right? So basically there's a teacher of the law, and they ask Jesus a question. They basically talk about the commands of the law, and Jesus says to basically be a good neighbor. And the man asks, well, what is a good neighbor? And then we get this answer, right? So in reply, Jesus says, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be goodness gracious. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came to where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him, bandaged his wounds, pouring oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense that you may have. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? The expert of the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Then Jesus says this, go and do likewise. Go and do likewise. So what we see here is we see that there's a representation of a good neighbor. There's a representation of a good neighbor, and Jesus gives 3 examples, and I'd like to work through them just real quick. So was the good neighbor the priest, right? Was the good neighbor the priest that was actually called apart? Now, if you don't know, basically there are 12 tribes of Israel, and the Levites were one of them, and they were called apart. And then within the Levites was an additional calling, and it was to be a priest. And they would be the ones who would work in the Holy of Holies. They were the ones who had to be clean. They weren't allowed to touch dead things, different stuff like that. And so they were called apart. This person was probably clean, right? They were elevated amongst all Jews. And here's the thing. This was also the person that walked on the other side of the road away from the robbed man, right? Now, earlier I said, why do we do what we do? We probably have some logic. I'll bet you the priest's logic in this moment was, if I touch this man and he happens to be dead, I am then unclean. Then I have to go through 7 days of rites in order to become clean, and then that throws off, and it leaves a burden on the other priests of the temple and all this kind of stuff, right? We can logic our way out of doing the things that we're supposed to do. Even if we might have some sound logic, that doesn't always mean that it's a good representation of what God or Jesus has for us. And so, once again, we see the priest is the one who walked past. Was the good neighbor the Levite, right? Once again, I already said the Levites were called apart. They were one of 12 tribes that was called to be separate. They were workers in the temple of God. They would go and they would help clean, and they would do different things with the sacrifices, and they were called to be something different, yet the Levites still walked, and they weren't a good neighbor. but was the good neighbor the Samaritan, the one who was disliked, the one who was outcasted. I don't know if you guys know this, but basically a Samaritan was a Jew who had interbred with Gentiles, right? So there was a grouping that after the exile, they came back, and basically the Jews were only supposed to intermingle with Jews. And when they came back, instead of kicking out and killing and making all the Gentiles leave their area, they just intermingled and interbred with them, right? And so they were called Samaritans. They were outcasts because they did not follow the law of keeping the lineage of Abraham pure, essentially, okay? And so the Samaritans would have been disliked. They would have been outcasts. They would have been the ones who their entire life would have been ridiculed. Yet they're the ones who took pity on the robbed man and blessed him by taking care of his needs. That was the good neighbor. The good neighbor was the one who took pity and blessed the man by taking care of his needs. So here's the thing. The Good Samaritan is a story representing what Jesus values. Does Jesus value power? Does he value status or importance? Does he... Got a phone dropping over there. Sorry, my brain just totally lost it. And when I heard the click, I apologize. He does not adhere to the things of this world, right? So status, power, importance, all those different things, that is not what Jesus reflects in his kingdom. What does he love? What does he have mercy on? What does he take pity on, right? Jesus represents his values are people. Jesus' values are people. And what I want you guys to know is that we as a church, we as people who reflect Jesus, also need to uphold those same things, right? Jesus has an upside-down kingdom. The things that are important to this world are not so important to Jesus, and vice versa. And what I want you guys to know is that Jesus loves people, and he wants what's best for people, right? Now, that best is not always our best. That means that sometimes there's going to be truths, and there's going to be hardships and disciplines that people of this world don't want to go through, that we don't want to put ourselves through. But at the end of the day, what Jesus values is people. And so we have Harvest Palooza specifically to reflect Jesus' love for people, all right? I want you guys to know, look at this. Who was the good neighbor, the one who had mercy on him? Jesus told him, go and do likewise. What we are going to do is we are going to be a people that reflects Jesus. All right? We're not going to be like a funhouse mirror. Have you guys ever been to a funhouse before? Yes. Right? So if you walk up to a funhouse and you look at it, are you seeing an accurate representation of yourself? No. Maybe you have a really big head, and then in the funhouse it makes it even bigger. Yeah. Get it? All right. All right. No. It gives an inaccurate representation of the image that it's reflecting, right? Don't be a funhouse mirror for Jesus, right? Maybe we could put that up as our Instagram post for the day. Don't be a funhouse mirror for Jesus. No, don't be someone that misrepresents the values of Jesus. Jesus values people. Let's value him too. All right. Next thing that I want to point out as a value of Harvest Palooza, a reason why we do Harvest Palooza, is to give the church a good name. All right, so we have give Jesus a good name in our community. Now we want to give the church a good name. Now, here's the thing. There are two different types of church that I'm talking about here. So the first one is what I call Big C Church, and the other one is what I call Little C Church. All right, so Big C Church, Little C Church. So Big C Church is the overall church of Jesus Christ, right? We are the bride of Christ, is the church of Christ. And so the whole church, everybody who's a follower of Jesus, is under the same kind of umbrella that people see us through, right? But then there's also the Little C Church, which is this church right here, Harvest Ridge Church, okay? And so Little C Church, it's important for us to also have a representation of Jesus and what the church is supposed to be like in our community, right? Now, the church, not just Big C Church, but actually this church as well, has been thrown a whole bunch of insulting things before where people say the church only cares about money. Have you guys ever heard the church only cares about money? Maybe not even in relation to this church, but the overall church, right? Well, it's kind of hard to not think that that's a value when you have some preachers who go on and they're getting up and they're doing interviews and they're like, well, when I was looking at my 13th house and I was flying my $1 billion plane, and it's like, of course you think that guy is a poor representation, and you think that the church only cares about money. Why? Because you have that as a representation, right? Also, at the same point, have you ever heard, the church is judgmental and hateful, right? The church is judgmental and hateful. Well, here's the thing. If my only representation of the church was people walking around with picket signs with slurs with Bible verses on it, I'd probably think that the church is hateful too, right? Is everybody with me? So here's the thing. We are called to be different. We're called to be set apart. And I want to be a church that is a good representation of what church is. And that's where we're going to get into in just a little bit. But I want you guys to know that we have Harvest Palooza not just to give Harvest Ridge a good name, but also to elevate the knowledge we want to elevate the name of the church in general, the Church of Jesus. And so what we're going to look at is we're going to look at 6:32 through 36 here. So 6:32 through 36. And it says this: if you love those who love you, what credit is it to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is it to you? Because even sinners do that. If you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. And then listen to this: but love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because He is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. Hear this once again: be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. This is 2 times now that Jesus has talked about mercy. 2 times now in which we have been commanded to do things in a reflection of God. And what I want you guys to know is that one of the core values of Harvest Palooza is that we don't ask money from anybody who comes in attendance, right? We give free food, free fireworks, free kids games, free prizes, free bounce houses. Have you ever tried to get a bounce house for your child's birthday party? Has anyone ever tried to do that? Those things are expensive, and we have 10 of them at this thing, right? All right. It costs money to put this on, but we don't ask a single dime out of the people who come. Why? Because of your faithful generosity. I don't know if you know this, but every year what happens is when you give to Kingdom Builders and when you give of your tithes and offerings, a portion of that goes to make Harvest Palooza function. Did you guys know that? I hope you do, because, all right, I don't know, now you know, all right? With that being said, when you are faithful in your generosity, we don't have to ask for some special gift. We don't have to say hey, we have a bucket up here and we have $10,000 of fireworks that we want to blow off in the sky. Please come give us money, right? No, we don't have to do anything like that because people are faithfully generous. You are faithfully generous on a regular basis, right? And so we don't have to ask for a $5 admittance. We get to play live music, all right? We get to give free food. We get to do all these different things. And when people want to throw in our face that the church only wants money, we get to say, where do you see that here? Where do you see that? Because we are asking nothing of you in return, right? We just want to show you the light and the love of Jesus. Not only that, but also the church is full of hatred and judgment. We include everybody in this. Everybody's included in Harvest Palooza. We get to give the church a good name because we don't exclude anybody because of their political divides. We don't exclude anybody because of their lifestyle choices or the way that they live or the people that they are, the way that they dress or what color their skin is or what language they speak or where they come from. We don't exclude anyone from this event. We're not hateful or full of judgment because we have received mercy, right? Are you messed up? Is anyone else in this room messed up besides me? All right, I'm messed up, and here's the thing. I've received mercy from God even though I don't deserve that mercy, right? I've received grace from God even though I don't deserve that grace. So what I want you guys to know is that when God tells us to be merciful just as your Father is merciful, God is merciful to us, which means I get to then be merciful to the community. And when I get to see something that I disagree with, guess what? I don't judge. That's God's job. What I do is I get to be merciful and graceful in those moments, right? So we're not just chasing after money, and we're not just being hateful and spiteful, because we literally welcome everybody. Harvest Palooza uplifts the name of the church, but it also uplifts the name of the church, okay? And then the last thing that I wanted to point out is that we get to experience the joy of serving, right? This is the third reason, and it's probably the most important reason, in my opinion, is because we want you to know the joy of serving. And by the way, in case you did not know, there is joy in serving. There's 100% joy in serving, right? The people who are saying like, whoop, they're probably the people who are serving in 5 different ministry areas, right? Because there is joy in serving. And so here's the thing. As a group, as a church, I tell the youth this all the time, we don't chase after happiness, right? We don't chase after happiness, we chase after joy. Happiness is a byproduct of joy. What is joy? It is saying no to myself short term, that way I can benefit myself and the generations to come long term. All right? So when I plant a seed and when I do the things that I need to do short term, I may never taste the fruit of that seed, but generations to come may benefit from it. That is joy, right? And happiness is a byproduct of that. So there was, we were just in the Bahamas not too long ago on a missions trip doing hurricane disaster relief. And the Pastor Rudy, I was having a conversation with him in which basically over the course of a few conversations, I heard come out of his mouth like 4 or 5 times, well, if I tried to walk away from the church, if I tried to stop being a pastor, the church would just drag me back, right? So he's like making this joke. But then at one point, I kind of had this thought of like, I wonder if he's having a hard time, right? They're in the middle of a building project. They've been working on this church for 5 years after a hurricane. 5 years, right? Can you imagine us trying to build this place in 5 years? Like, actually, it was built. A hurricane ripped the roof off of it and it ruined everything, right? So they have to try and revitalize this entire church. There's immense pressure on pastors when they're trying to go through a building project, right? One of the reasons why we're doing 3 services is that way we don't have to do another building project right now, all right? All right? So unless you want Pastor Kevin to have a little bit more gray hair in his hair, all right, then let's not do a building project. Let's be celebratory that we need 3 services, all right? With that being said, though, all right, he was stressing out. And I came up and I talked about the Beatitudes at their church on Sunday. And afterwards, he walked up to me and he said, I think God sent a pastor from Ohio to tell me the thing that I needed to hear, which was the fact that, and I used the illustration of an avocado tree, basically. I said, because they have avocado trees all over, maybe your job is to just plant the joy of an avocado tree, and you may never get to taste an avocado. Is it not worth it? And basically, when he heard this, we had this long conversation afterwards, and I felt like if nothing else happened during my trip to Bahamas, I felt like God used me for the thing that he needed me to do, right? Because if not one heart, if not one soul is worth it, then I don't know what is, right? And so what I want you guys to know is that we get to experience the joy of serving. Sometimes serving stinks, especially when you're changing my son's dirty diapers, all right? I don't know what's been recently, but that boy, he's 9 months old, and goodness gracious, it's bad. It's bad, people, all right? With that being said, though, I don't enjoy changing his dirty diapers, but you know what I do enjoy? That I get to laugh and giggle and play with him, and I get to serve my son, right? Because I love him, and I want him to know that I love him. So what's going to happen is my hopeful investment in his dirty diapers, he'll take care of me and not put me in a nursing home or something, you know what I mean? Like that's the hope. With that being said, he'll change my diapers when, so. Here's the thing. We get to experience the joy of serving because God has given us the ability to serve, right? He's invested into us. He's given us talents. He's given us abilities. He's given us able bodies and sound minds. He's given some people in this room dashing good looks to serve the kingdom of God with, all right? All right, not everybody in this room, but some. Here's the thing. God has given us all these different giftings, and I don't want to see you waste them, all right? And here's a little story about, or not a little story, it's a parable that Jesus describes. It's out of Matthew 25, 14 through 28. All right, Matthew 25, 14 through 28. And I'm going to kind of skim through it, except at the beginning. It says this: "And it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another he gave 2 bags, and to another he gave 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his own journey." Now, real quick, I said this earlier. We went on this trip to the Bahamas, and when I was having a conversation with one of the locals, I asked, do you guys have any anger towards Americans and Canadians for coming in and buying houses and basically raising the property values? And they said, yeah, that creates a little bit of hardship, but what we love about Americans and Canadians is that their only value is not here, they have it somewhere else. And so what happened is after the hurricane came in, the Americans and the Canadians came in and immediately were able to work on their Airbnbs and brought profit back to their area. Well, when you bring profit back, then builders and roofers and flooring people and all those different people who work construction and those kind of jobs who were locals from the Bahamas, they got to have their jobs back essentially, right? And so what they said is the Americans don't live here, but they entrust us to manage their assets. And so when they're blessed, we get blessed, basically, right? And so I thought that was a very unique mindset that we don't often see in many other places in the world, in which they actually are appreciative of people who come and invest in their properties because then they also get blessed, right? And so we see that here is that this master was leaving, and what he did is he entrusted a blessing to 3 different servants, each according to their own ability. Now, some people have more talent than other people. It's flat out. But every single person in this room has talent. You all have abilities. You all have the ability to do something for the kingdom of God. And we're going to see what people did with their abilities. So the one with 5, he went and invested it and gained 5 more. The one with 2 went and invested it and gained 2 more. But the one with 1 did this. All right? I lost my place. But the one who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. Right? So when the master comes back, he asks the one with 5 bags, what did you do? He said, I invested, I got 5 more bags. And the master says, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come share in your master's happiness. What did I say? Is happiness our goal? No, but happiness is a byproduct of the joy. When we do the right things long term, we get happiness in that short term. All right? And so come and share in your master's happiness. The same thing happened with the person who gave 2 bags, who invested it and got 2 more bags, right? But then the one with 1 said this. All right? Then the one who had received 1 bag of gold said, Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. So you knew that I have harvested where I have not sown and gathered where I have not scattered seed. Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers so that when I return, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. What do we see here? We see that the ones who were entrusted and the ones who invested received in their share of happiness. Right? And I'm not going to say that when you give tithe, you get happiness, right? That 100%, I'm not going to, we're not doing this whole well, when you give us 10,000 today, 100,000 is going to come tomorrow, right? I'm not preaching that 100%. But what I will say is that Pastor Garrett had a beautiful testimony of saying that he has never been without. He didn't have to worry about what today was going to bring. He didn't have to worry about the stresses. Why? Because when he gives of his daily bread, he doesn't have to worry about the next daily bread, right? And so we trust God with our daily bread, and that is what the servants did, is that they used their abilities and their talents to help their master expand his, honestly, to gain more. And when he gained more, the servants reaped more benefit, right? But the one who was wicked, the one who was lazy, was the one who did not invest his master's talents and abilities and the gifts that he had given him. And what I want to say to you today is that some people in this room have taken the abilities and the talents and the gifts that God has given you, and you have gone and dug a hole in your backyard and you've thrown them in there and you've covered them up and you'd said, that's for someone else, it's not for me. Some of you, and I'm not even just talking about Harvest Palooza here, right? Harvest Palooza is a great time in which we basically hand you serving on a platter, and we say, like, all you have to do is come for an hour-long shift, and you get to speak into the hearts and lives. Then you get to go have fun. Like, that's beautiful. But there's other things in your life in which God has given you the ability to go speak to your coworkers. God has given you the ability to go talk when you're trapped at an oil change and the person sitting next to you, right? God has given you the ability to be a witness to them, right? And you think, well, I don't know the Bible well enough. Well, I don't have the abilities. Well, I'm not Pastor Kevin. Well, I'm not Pastor Jesse. Well, I can't evangelize. I can't do this kind of stuff. That's bull, right? Because what you're doing in that moment is you're digging a hole and you're throwing your gifts and your talents into it. And you're saying, that's not for me, God. And that is an unfair way of treating a gift, right? That is such an unfair way of treating a gift. At the very least, go do something with it and get interest back, right? I don't want to see you go through life with talents and abilities and God-given gifts and you squander them or you hide them under a bowl like the light of Jesus, right? I don't want to see you go through life like that. And Harvest Palooza is an excellent opportunity to serve and to understand the joy of serving, but it's also an excellent opportunity for you to learn how to be disciplined and to step into something that's greater than yourself. Because there are thousands of people that come to Harvest Palooza every year. And we get to share the gospel of God and we get to show the light and the love of Jesus with thousands of people every year. And here's the thing, most of the people who come to Harvest Palooza, did you know that most of them aren't just coming because they read a sign? Most of them are coming because you invited them. They're your coworkers, they're your neighbors, they're your family members. In the video that we're gonna watch in a little bit, I want you guys to notice how many green shirts are there and how many other people are there. Most of the people who are there are family members, friends, coworkers, neighbors. Most of the people who come, right? And that is who you have a direct influence over. That is who God has gifted you the ability to go talk to. So what we're gonna do is I'm actually gonna let you guys see this video and if you do not know what Harvest Palooza is, this should give you a good taste, and then I'm going to come back in, I got something else to say. But I want you guys to know that this is what you get to invest into.
Harvest Palooza 2023, here we go.
The future's bright, the time is now. Destiny is calling, can you hear the sound? You're brave enough to chase the sun. Show them what we're made of, we were born to run. Hey, there's a spark in your heart and a fire that's in your eyes. Full of hope cause you know everything's gonna be alright. Living our best life, taking it all in stride. The light will be our guide. We were born to run. We were born to run. We were born to run. Staring down the road ahead, step into the wild, hold the world inside your head. Gonna take a chance while we're still young. Nothing's gonna slow us down, cause we were born to run. There's a spark in your heart and a fire that's in your eyes. For the hope cause you know everything's gonna be alright. Living our best life, taking it all in stride. The light will be our guide.
So that's what we get to invest into, right? So in 1990, there was a couple named Alex and Rhoda Toth, and they won $13 million in the lottery. Some people in this room think that the lottery is going to take away all the things that you ever worried about. They were set to receive $666,000 a year, right? That should set people up. The couple then went on a spending spree for the next few years, and by 2001, so 11 years later, they had officially filed for bankruptcy and actually owed the IRS $554,000 in back taxes. Here's the thing. We have been given far more than a $13 million lottery in this life. We've been given the chance and the knowledge of an eternal Father who blesses us more than we could ever imagine. And once again, I hate to see the things that God has given us, the knowledge that we have, the light that we have in our heart. I hate to see those things hidden under a bushel or dug in and put in a hole in the backyard. I hope that you guys will invest in the kingdom of God, because I think that this community desperately needs to hear the message of Jesus Christ. Galatians 5:13 says this: "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge in the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love." And so we get an opportunity to serve one another humbly in love. Up on the screen, we have a QR code. If you have yet to sign up for Harvest Palooza, I'm going to highly encourage you to go ahead and sign up with our QR code. If you say QR codes are not my thing, I don't enjoy doing that, or maybe I just want to sign up on some other way, we have iPads in the back with workers, and they will go and help take you through step by step. If you say, hey, I'm gone for that week, well, great news for you. We do day after cleanups. I put up banners and signs all over the community in weeks prior to. So basically what I'm saying is there's always opportunities for people to help out with this. I don't want to see you squander the talents and the gifts and the abilities that God has given you. I want to see you use the things that he has given you to invest in not just this generation, but the current and coming generations, all right? And so last but not least, we also have a whole bunch of yard signs outside, right? We have a whole bunch of yard signs, and I would encourage you, if each family can go ahead and take one, especially if you're on like a busy street or something. You guys can go grab one of those, and please only take one per. And it's a great promotion for your friends and neighbors who drive by your house to see what you're doing. Now, if you have a really bad like grass is as tall as the sign, don't take the sign. Kidding. No, but maybe cut the grass around your sign a little bit. With that being said, we want to give a good representation of Jesus. We want to give a good representation of this church and the overall church. And we also want to understand the joy of serving, all right? And so I'm going to encourage you guys to do that. Let me go ahead and pray for you, and then we're going to go ahead and dismiss. So Jesus, thank you for the people here in this room. Thank you for allowing us to be here. Thank you for giving us gifts and talents and abilities that are wildly more than what we deserve. God, I pray that you would help us understand that there is more to this than just a party. There's more to this than just free food and fireworks. God, that there are people who will be reached eternally for your kingdom and for your glory because of our willingness to serve. So, Father, I pray that you would bless us. I pray that you would give us success with this. I pray that there would be phenomenal weather during Harvest Palooza, and I pray that there would be a drive in our hearts and in our lives to make this go off without a hitch, and that we would understand the values behind this event. So thank you, Jesus. Please bless us. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Hey, I love you guys. Please sign up. Please take one of those pieces of paper, and I hope you have a great day.